Welcome to Columbus News Channel. Simultaneous explosions occurred in the border regions of Russia. Ukrainian armed forces allegedly carried out bombardments and air strikes. Tensions are rising in the border regions. Even in Russia's own country, the inadequacy of defense was revealed. Increasing mutual attacks causes great losses in the Russian army. Nearly 800 Russian soldiers were neutralized during the day. Russian forces are increasing their strategic mistakes by targeting their energy infrastructure. Air defense systems were activated in the Lviv region. Deputy Chief of the Main Operations Presidency of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces made critical statements about the explosions on the territory of Russia. In these days when the violence of the war has increased considerably, the operations have started to progress in favor of the Ukrainian army. As the tension between the countries increases, the size of the attacks increases. Ukrainian army has started to achieve great success with the powerful operations it started on the fronts. Explosions have occurred on Russian soil just after the recent increase in Russian attacks on infrastructures. As a result of the simultaneous attacks, successive explosions were reported first in the Saratov region of Russia, then in the Belgorod and Bryansk regions. It was alleged that the Ukrainian armed forces carried out artillery attacks on the border regions of Bryansk and Belgorod. After the attacks on the infrastructures in Ukraine, it was claimed that the Glotovo and Gravron regions in Belgorod were bombed and the military infrastructures were damaged as a result of the attacks. By hitting such military infrastructures, it may be aimed to break the communication between the Russian soldiers. As a result of the attacks carried out in this way, communication between the soldiers cannot be established and the soldiers who are not aware of the attack cannot take the necessary precautions. It is known that the Ukrainian armed forces are targeting such strategic points in their own countries. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine announced the latest Russian casualties. As the war continues, Russia's casualties in Ukraine are increasing. This time, the Ukrainian forces destroyed 1 tank, 10 armored combat vehicles, 5 artillery systems, 5 multiple launch rocket systems, 1 helicopter and 15 vehicles and tankers of the Russian forces in just one day. In addition, it is known that around 6,050 armored combat vehicles, 3,020 tanks and much more military equipment of Russia were destroyed during the war. Such losses of military equipment greatly reduce Russia's ground operating power. Russia, which is dealing with serious problems in its operations on land, is getting more and more difficult due to such equipment losses. For these reasons, military resource losses reach an even more irrecoverable dimension. Ukrainian forces also neutralized 790 Russian soldiers in just one day. According to the information provided by Ukraine, Russia suffered the biggest losses in the last day on the Bakhmut and Lyman fronts. Total losses of the Russian Federation on the territory of Ukraine reached very serious levels. According to the data released by Ukraine, approximately 104,560 soldiers of Russia have been neutralized since February. These troop losses make it even more difficult for Russia to achieve success in its operations. Moreover, it is known that one of the biggest reasons for these soldier losses is strategic mistakes. To remind you, Russia carried out attacks on the capital, Kiev, and its surroundings, which was very difficult to achieve at the beginning of the war. In these attacks, although it seemed difficult, it turned out worse than the predictions for Russia and lost its experienced soldiers to a large extent. Due to the loss of many high-ranking soldiers and equipment without any success, Russia had to withdraw from the regions. On top of that, he used ammunition without achieving military success with his attacks on infrastructures with each passing day. This started to make Russia weaker day by day. It still continues its attacks against infrastructures in Ukraine. These attacks not only cause him to use ammunition in vain, but also cause him to be subject to sanctions from many countries. These sanctions, on the other hand, have an effect on the progress of the Russian army on the fronts. Because of the sanctions imposed on Russia, it is very difficult to reach the necessary military equipment and ammunition. This makes it much more difficult for soldiers on the front to achieve a feat. Despite all this, Russia continues its attacks on infrastructures. During the day, attacks were carried out against many regions. In fact, as a result of the attacks, 54 out of 69 missiles were destroyed. While Ukraine's air defense is getting stronger day by day, Russia's infrastructure attacks are starting to increase. Russia's attack on energy infrastructure is not limited to this. It was reported that air defense systems shot down 4 out of 6 missiles in Ukraine's Lviv Oblast in a massive missile attack by Russia. However, it was announced that a substation was hit twice. After this attack, critical damage occurred to the power line. Head of the Lviv Oblast State Administration Maxim Kozitsky shared the details of the region. Such attacks are still continuing. However, in recent days, it has been reported that support for the damage of many infrastructures will be sent from countries. Many countries such as Finland, Azerbaijan, and Italy announced that they will send various aids such as transformers and generators to repair Ukraine's infrastructures. It is known that thanks to such supports, the infrastructure of the country was repaired and these attacks were in vain. Russia, which is currently experiencing serious decreases in its financial and military resources, has also had to deal with greater losses by using its expensive missiles in vain. This loss of military resources, which increases day by day, may result in Russia's withdrawal from the war at any moment or trying different ways with greater losses. Different ways, on the other hand, can be carried out of a risky kind. However, in this case, he will find many countries against him. This could lead him to confront more countries and deal with more serious problems. On the other hand, it is known that the increasing attacks on Russian soil have increased the anxiety in Moscow. Deputy Chief of the Main Operations Presidency of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Brigadier General Alexei Romov, answered questions about the course of the war, and answered questions about the possibility of an increase in explosions on Russian soil in the new year. Romov made remarkable statements regarding these issues and stated that explosions will increase in Russia in 2023. As it is known, explosions started to occur for the first time on Russian soil, especially after large-scale missile attacks on infrastructures in Ukraine. Then, various military points were attacked in many Russian regions and Russia's defense inadequacy was also revealed. Even if these explosions and attacks cannot convince Russia to withdraw, it is also wondered how it will progress if it encounters more problems in the future. At the same time, it is estimated that both countries are currently planning attacks for the new year. Despite the fact that 10 months have passed in the war, the fact that there is still no agreement between the countries arouses more curiosity about the steps to be taken in the coming days. From now on, the decisions of the leaders of the countries about the war and the directions of the soldiers fighting in the field will determine the fate of the war on behalf of the countries. These moves, which are very important, now have to be carried out in a much more strategic direction. Otherwise, if one party makes a mistake, the other party can turn this situation into an advantage. If Russia continues its attacks on infrastructures, where it fails to achieve a military success, on the contrary, it loses ammunition, it may have to face much greater defeats. If Ukraine continues its successful operations by increasing it will succeed in removing the Russian army from all regions and retaking the regions. For this, every move is much more critical now. In the long run, we will be able to see more clearly which side will take more correct steps and what moves will be made. In these days when the violence of the war has increased considerably, all kinds of developments will be eagerly awaited. We'll see what happens in the next few days. We have reached the end of another video. You can support us by liking the video. You can easily follow new videos by subscribing. I wish you all a war-free day. See you.